Fishing the waters of the Gulf by commercial fishermen dates back to the mid-19th century, as small boats gave way to increasingly larger craft that exploited fisheries well offshore. By the late 19th century, the Gulf's fishing vessels were wooden-hulled, two-masted schooners that worked in deep water. The trade they engaged in was nationally important to the U.S. economy and employed vessels homeported both in Gulf ports, notably Pensacola, but also transient fishing vessels from New England. Known as Gloucestermen, they were chartered by Gulf owners and companies, or sent into the Gulf by their owners to participate in the lucrative Gulf red snapper fishery, as it blossomed after 1885 and continued into the new century. As late as 1937, these fishing schooners were part of America's lore and legend, including a feature role in the MGM film Captains Courageous, starring Spencer Tracy. From this once vast fishing fleet, only 2 historic vessels remain afloat and sailing. Shallow water shipwrecks of some fishing schooners have been discovered and documented by archaeologists in the coastal waters of Florida, but 2 deep water shipwrecks of these once common schooners have also been found that are exceptional archaeological sites because they lie basically undisturbed since their loss and are preserved in the deep water environment of the Gulf. The Green Lantern Shipwreck is likely the remains of a late 19th century 2-masted fishing schooner, as is another deepwater site known as the 7,000-foot wreck. Discovered in 1996, the Green Lantern wreck was studied by archaeologists and scientists in 2004, 2009, and in 2010. How did the wreck get its name? In the wreckage, a brass lantern, one of 2 that were on the forward rigging on each side of the ship and called the running lights, was seen and recovered using a remotely operated vehicle. The lantern was stamped with the word estribor, Spanish for starboard, or the right side of the ship.
One distinguishing characteristic of the Green Lantern wreck is the presence of both port and starboard signal lanterns. This is not a piece of shipboard equipment that we frequently see on other deepwater shipwrecks in the Gulf. That leads me to wonder if the sinking event happened so quickly that there wasn't enough time to retrieve such items in the event of abandoning ship. But it also leads me to wonder, was there even an opportunity for the crew to abandon ship before it slipped beneath the waves?
Starboard running lights on the ship were painted green. The fact that the lantern is stamped with a Spanish word could mean that the vessel was from a Spanish-speaking port, but it could also reflect the fact that many Spanish-speaking crews worked on fishing vessels that were sailing from Florida ports in the 19th century.
The artifacts on the Green Lantern wreck demonstrate that ships of this time period were not necessarily monocultural. In other words, the artifacts ranging from navigational equipment to personal items did not all originate from one single nation. Other recovered artifacts indicate that manufactured goods from multiple nations were carried on board.
Archaeologists focus on details that speak to people. These details can be the choices made in how something was built, because the way work was done provides insights into different practices, or how people felt about the work they did, and that can be reflected in something as simple in how neatly a job was done, or not. One of the artifacts found on the wreck and recovered by the archaeological team was a small unmarked brass bell near the bow. There's no name on it, but it still speaks to life on board. On fishing vessels of the period, small bells like this were located on the foremast. They were rung to signal to the crew what time it was and to mark the passing of time for a crew's shift, or watch, by being rung every half hour. Ship time, therefore, was marked from 1 bell to 8 bells for every watch. A fork with a maker's name stamped on it dates to at least 1901, but could have been used later, and a ceramic plate that bears a maker's mark from 1910 are some of the clues that suggest that this late 19th century built fishing schooner likely sank in the first decades of the 20th century. Fishing under sail continued through the 1930s, and older boats, if cared for, could last that long. What happened to the Green Lantern Shipwreck ended the career of one of these veteran fishing craft, and the crew may have gone down with the ship, as it appears to have quickly sunk, probably in one of the Gulf's frequent storms. If so, this wreck is a reminder that many shipwrecks do not make it into the history books. If they had been humble boats, hard-worked, and when lost, they were mourned by families and friends ashore, but often without a newspaper headline. Occasionally, though, when a working boat, like a fishing vessel, gains the attention of the world through a best-selling book and movie, like The Perfect Storm, we are reminded that the majority of the world's wrecks are craft like these, and a common experience for many families throughout history.